What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100x Engineering. It says episode 2, Phil Gates-Idem here at the top, but this is actually episode 3. 100x engineers know how to count, and so I will fix that in our next episode. But wanted to start. Drew, I actually had an idea because I feel awkward every time we start. Just kind of like, hey, let's do the streamer voice. I kind of feel like we should start and like be doing something, like like reading a book and be like, hello there.
Just casually relaxing.
Didn't see. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, you can't do this. I can't react in the way I want to react when it's public.
Yeah, we might need to get something going at the beginning. Just random activities for fun.
Okay, I'm like half tempted to be like, let's roll the intro credit thing again, and then we'll be doing something this time. But I won't waste our viewers.
Next time.
Yeah, our 2.4 million viewers. There's a lot of investment in this. Super excited for the content today. Joining us, I will let him introduce himself when we get going. But this is interesting. Previously, everybody that we've interviewed has been on Drew and I's team, and they've all made jokes, or I've made jokes about who do you work for. It has been flipped now. I actually work for the person that we're interviewing today, so I am shaking in my boots here. Everybody give a round of applause for my boss and favorite employee at JupiterOne. Remember I said that on my annual review, Phil Gates-Idem.
Hey, everyone. A little nervous. Welcome. 2.4 million viewers now?
It's climbing steadily. It rounds up to 2.5.
And Carter, who do you work for? Just a reminder.
I happily work for you, and it is an utter treat and an utter joy. That sounds sarcastic. I need to be careful.
So yes, I am the head of engineering at JupiterOne, and Carter, works for me. So happy to be here.
I need to flex too now. Drew works for me,
and I work for Carter. I was waiting for it. My boss's boss. You're intimidated.
Like 3 generations of management here. Just wow. This is quite the room to be in right now, or virtual room. So a little bit about what we wanted to talk with Phil about today. Phil's had some interesting experiences in his career. He's easily one of the most seasoned engineers here at JupiterOne, and currently the head of engineering and one of the greatest thought leaders we have, brightest minds on the team. Phil, you didn't start at JupiterOne, obviously. That wasn't like your first company. How did you actually end up working here or working at J1?
It's kind of a long story. It was.
We have an hour, so.
Okay. Do you want me to go back to my whole history of when I started programming, or?
Yeah. So when you were, I was gonna weaned to the bottle, and you've touched your first computer at the age of 3, and.
I'm just going to give a quick history of my career.
That's probably better.
That's better.
So I'm in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. It's the Research Triangle Park, and it's also where NC State, the university, is located. And after I graduated, I worked at Cisco, which was in Research Triangle Park. Very large company, very good experience. Got to travel out to San Jose as a recent grad. It was kind of a fun experience. Worked there for a few years. I probably am going to skip some companies, but I worked at SAS for a little bit, which is another large company here. Then I worked at EMC/RSA, another large company in Research Triangle Park. Eventually, I was able to finally manage to break into the small companies here in the Raleigh-Durham area. And that's what I've been doing ever since then. So I worked at a startup called OrgBook. Later, it changed its name to OrgSpan to not compete with Facebook. So there was a trademark infringement lawsuit pending. Then I worked at, that was rolled into another company called Interactive Intelligence. Interactive Intelligence was sold to a company called Genesis. And at that time, I went and joined the founder of Interactive Intelligence at his new company called Lifomic. And Lifomic, really great company, really true startup experience. And JupiterOne actually started as a company within that startup. So we kind of grew, we kept growing. We then got spun out to a separate company, and that brings us to here where we are today.
And we might talk about that spin out later, because I would love to hear your thoughts on being the head of an engineering org that spins out. Being a part of that, I hope to never go through something like that again, but it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, really lived through that with you, Carter. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was a bonding experience. What's Nightingale syndrome? Not Nightingale. There's some sort of syndrome where you go through something intense together and you bond as a result of it. Programming isn't your only career though, is it? It's you also have a side hustle, if I may call it. Would you call it a side hustle, Drew? How would you phrase it? Since you
I
have a
would.
side hustle.
There's definitely some passion there. I think so. It's got to be at least a side hustle.
Yeah, I would say so. People may not know this, but Phil, would you mind giving well, I'll just let the speaking news. Phil is a professional bodybuilder in his free time. I have proof right here. That is the man,
Wow.
the legend. Look at those traps. I mean, like
those delts, everything.
You can see a perfect triangle. Like the geometry of Phil right there is just incredible. Let's see.
I don't even know what some of those muscles are.
Let's see. Oh, check the. These are incredible. Are these are suitable to show on a stream, right? This really is. If I could just get a thumbs up from marketing who's watching this. Okay, yeah, I think we're good. Yeah, there we go.
It's really interesting how often this comes up. But yes, I'm not quite a professional bodybuilder. I think Carter was exaggerating a little bit. But
I'm going to show the one that you said that you didn't want to show because you don't look good in it.
Yeah, you look terrible.
I only look like an 11 out of 10 here.
I know there's some work to be done, but yeah,
doesn't meet my threshold of 13 or 14. Mad respect here. Bodybuilding fascinates me. Drew, you do that as well, right? Or you?
Right. I mean, I'm like much younger and much earlier in my career, if you could call it that. But you get a lot of interest, Bill, because it's super interesting. There's a lot that goes into that.
So Drew, how about you hire me to be your coach?
After seeing those pictures, I might just do that.
I'm thinking about quitting my job and just focusing on coaching and bodybuilding. So maybe
then we'll invert it. You'll work for me and I won't work for you anymore. It'll be great.
My wife walked by a little bit ago and I had these up. She's like, what are you looking at? I was like, this is my boss. This is Will.
Panics.
Yeah. Like nothing. Okay. But like, I feel like, so like bodybuilding kind of fascinates me. Like I go to the gym and, I run on the treadmill for like 5 minutes, and like do a couple dumbbell curls and then go home and play sports on my Xbox, like sit on the couch or something. So like, what does it take to achieve that level of like chisel, like the David, like Michelangelo sculpted? Do I have to eat cardboard? Do I have to, I don't know, I run out of stuff to do in like 20 minutes.
It's a pretty serious commitment. And, those photos were about 4 or 5 years old, maybe a little longer. I won't say exactly, but I'm amazed I had so much time to actually dedicate to bodybuilding. But it's about 5 to 6 days a week of going to the gym, very disciplined diet. You have to really, I'm really good at having a schedule for food and, knowing exactly what to eat. My wife actually did the bodybuilding with me, so that was actually also a big help. But one thing that I really liked is consistency. I could eat the same food every day and I was fine with it. So if you have trouble eating the same food every day, you might struggle with bodybuilding, or it might be a little bit more effort than you'd expect. But
so yeah, being a little closer to this than you, Carter, I agree with Phil there. I'm the exact same way. I can eat the same thing over and over again. And I think, Phil, you could agree the diet is probably most of that right there.
Oh, yeah.
The gym's probably maybe 20 to 30% of it. And then it's strict diet and sleep and consistency. You have to do the same thing over and over again for years.
But I know we're talking about bodybuilding, but there was also, before that, I did a lot of long distance running, marathons and half marathons. And we were just my wife and I were just picking a new goal, and bodybuilding for various reasons became our new hobby. And we got pretty serious about it. Did not quit our day job, but really enjoyed it.
That's awesome. The couple that power lifts together stays together. And you're a 100x engineer when you can bench press every member of your team. Not at the same time. That's just ridiculous. But
Carter, I was not a power lifter. I was a
there's a difference, Carter.
Very big difference.
Well, you know that you're a 100x engineer when you confuse powerlifting and body. I'm calling myself a 100x engineer. That is pretentious.
I looked strong, but I was not actually strong, or not as strong as a typical power lifter.
Can't relate.
There's a whole other theology.
Bodybuilding does not equate to strength. I mean, you get stronger, but you're not there's whole different levels when it comes to powerlifting.
That is fascinating to me. Okay, so and we'll get off this in a second. Again, I'm trying to pitch that this relates to 100x engineering. But okay, so like to get a sense of scale for like, are you stronger? Could you bench press me? We're live. I weigh 180.
Okay, yeah. So could I bench press you? Possibly, and it would really rely on you being very balanced.
I'm extremely ticklish, and I wiggle a lot.
Then probably not.
Yeah, it's different than a barbell live person who's wiggling around.
You'd have to stay very still while doing it and very balanced. So yeah, if you could do that, maybe, but it doesn't sound like it. So I'm going to say no.
Okay. If you like hog-tied me, like arms and legs, and then like hog-tied me to like a board, and you held the board, like the 2x4 under me, and did that, could you bench press me?
Briefly.
Okay, cool.
Like 10 seconds.
And that's brief for me. Is like half a second. Like got it off the rack. Okay, we're good. I was gonna ask if you could shoulder press me. But if you can briefly bench press me, although let's bring it back up again. Let's take one more look. I mean, if you can't shoulder press me, I don't know what this is.
They're show muscles. They're just for the show.
But
filled with air.
Exactly.
We have 2.5 million viewers right now, so I want to make sure that people late to the stream see these. These are important. This is why you should respect this man and hear what he has to say, and for his big, beautiful brain as well. Lest I sound like I'm objectifying my boss publicly on the stream. Well, that is fascinating. Okay, last question that we got. What would like a good trip to like the gym look like? Like, are you there for like hours, or are you pretty efficient? Like, if you're consistent, can you get by like 20 minutes going to the gym if you're every day? What does that look like?
It's funny you should ask that. Like I don't get to go to the gym as frequently now. I'm going to try to get better, but my gym trips now are usually on the weekends, and I do like literally every muscle all in one day. That works well for me currently, but back when I was doing bodybuilding, I definitely had to split up my muscle groups and do like 1 to 2 major muscle groups a day. So a good visit, I tend to get distracted if I have my phone out. So I tend to also have to then put my phone in the locker just so I don't get distracted. And that's usually a good workout.
There's sometimes you've messaged me on Slack and be like, yeah, I'm at the gym right now. And I just imagine you like 600 pounds, like sweating, and then like, wait, hang on one second, like telling your spotter and like slacking me, like, yeah, I approved this PR, you're good to ship it. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Is that actually what it's like? Please say
either
yes.
That or it's probably sitting on my phone for 30 minutes reading the news.
So. Yeah, okay. Just like while you're under the burden of the weight, right?
You can imagine that way, but
okay,
it probably wasn't.
Just give it to him. It'll make him happy.
It will make me happy.
Carter, I don't know how to do this, but we have a question in the chat about whether or not we did Olympic lifting, I believe.
Let's see here.
Anyone's done that.
This is from Carson Called, Phil/G/Carter, LOL. Did you ever get into Olympic lifting?
I think that's what that means.
Yeah.
I don't know the terminology.
Good on that list.
Olympic lifting is a type of lift, right? I actually don't think I've done that. Maybe that's a power lifting.
A few.
Okay, this is my chance. Yeah, this is my chance. This is where I do like cleans.
Clean and jerks. Yep.
Deadlift is an Olympic lift, I think.
Snatches, deadlift, clean and jerks. I
may have done that once with just some very low weight just to practice the movement, but I can't honestly say I've done it seriously. How about you, Drew?
I have not. I'm always scared to get injured. They're very complex movements. And again, it's a whole different category. Bodybuilding, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, they're all different. And they all require different muscles of different sizes.
I may have veiled my hand a little bit. I did CrossFit for a while, and I've actually recently gotten back into it. And if you do CrossFit, you have to tell everybody that you do it. And that's a big part of it. So that's one thing that I can answer. So I'm not completely gym illiterate, I guess. Great question coming from Carson. We got some hot tips coming in from Ashley here. Try with just a PVC pipe first for technique. And I've done that is actually all the Olympic lifts I do are with PVC pipe, just
exclusively PVC pipe.
Marshmallows on the end when I'm feeling risky.
Like that SpongeBob episode with stuffed animals.
Oh, okay. For our 2.4 million viewers, I would love some suggestions on how I transition from talking about bodybuilding to speaking of bodybuilding, let's compare and contrast working at big companies and startups. Is that a smooth transition? Can we roll with that?
We can make that work somehow.
Speaking of things that are, speaking of big companies, Phil, where did you worked? I didn't actually know you worked at Cisco until I snoozed your area. We have somebody on YouTube saying, please don't. So I will take that. Here we go. Tyler Walsh for the win. J1 Tyler Walsh, bodybuilding.
Nice.
Speaking of building things, building a business. You've worked at both a startup and like big mega corporations. Like I stalked your LinkedIn before this and like I was like, oh, Phil works for Cisco or worked for Cisco a while back. That's pretty cool. And worked for a couple other places. I actually didn't know you worked for Orgbooks either. Can you kind of what are some of the things you miss about working at a big company? What are some things you like about working at a small company? Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for people that work at big companies. If I had the choice, though, I would always pick a small company. But it's a different challenge. It's more about, I want to say politics, but that's probably not really exactly fair. But you definitely have to focus more on influencing and more maximizing or multiplying people's activity rather than being a strong individual contributor. I actually have a twin brother who works at Amazon still, and I haven't gotten him to switch over to the startup world, but we're taking different career paths so I can kind of see a glimpse of like what my career would have been like if I would have stayed at a big company. And small companies, you definitely have to wear lots of hats, and then I'm starting to learn as taking JupiterOne from like a startup into a bigger company, like there's a lot of, changes that happen. And we're still trying to always maintain the startup culture, but, sometimes it gets difficult and trying to find the right balance of like big company versus small company. And we're not that big yet, but we're getting there.
We're getting there, like 100+ people.
So Carter, did you ever work at a big company?
Actually, no, but I think Drew has.
I have, and I'm not going to pretend to have nearly as much experience, but I did resonate with the point on, it's almost like you said, you don't have as much influence off the bat, like contributing as a sole contributor. You can't really make as big of a splash without having people. I'm curious about that point you made, because I did feel that it feels like you're a very small piece in a giant machine, and there's only so much you can sway things. However, that giant machine is useful because it's established and you have lots of resources and lots of experienced people in that machine. So there's definitely multiple sides to it.
Yeah, big companies get really good about breaking apart problems into like splitting across lots of different people, and there's a role for everything.
Did you like working at a bigger company? Did either of you ever have like startups? Most of my career, all of my career has been working at like smaller size companies, like 400 people or less. And like I feel like all of them have had like some quirks, like we've got ping pong tables, you can play Rocket League or Smash Bros in our game room, we give you an Xbox once a year or something like that. I'm still lobbying that JupiterOne gets a treehouse slide in their office. I haven't requested that in like a year, so Urkong, if you're watching this, like you'll hear more from me about that here soon. But do like bigger companies have those quirks as well, or
we never did. Maybe it was liability reasons, or I don't know. I never worked at a big company that they had nice gyms. That was really nice perk at big companies. They had nice cafeterias, nice gyms, but not a lot of gaming activities, at least not at the companies I worked at.
I guess like you hear about some of the FANG companies, like they have like you can do your laundry there. For those of you in the audience, if you want to drop some messages, if any of you have worked at a company that's had like some interesting perks, I would love to hear about these actually, because again, I'm devoid of that experience. Drew, do you have any that you experienced?
Not really, and maybe this is just Phil and I's bodybuilding background, but the gyms and the cafeterias were my favorite as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like, I worked for, I don't know if I can call names. I can call names. Delta and Home Depot, based out of Atlanta, and those aren't exactly your Googles or your Facebooks. They don't have all those cool quirks, I don't think.
Right. Do you at least get like a discount at Home Depot if you work for Home Depot?
You don't. I was so surprised.
That is shocking.
No employees get discounts. It's just how they roll. Big
orange. We got Tyler Shields coming in saying he had pinball machines. But did you have to pay to use the pinball machines? It's like, we'll recoup our salary that we pay our employees by making them go bonkers over these paddles. That is I haven't heard pinball machines before either, actually. Well, that's interesting. I feel like we have some quirks at JupiterOne, but like remote quirks are different than like in-office quirks, right? Like okay, let's see. I actually got to wrap this up with Tyler because I spent more hours in front of the Addams Family pinball machine from 1997 to 2001, and no, it was on free play. That changes everything.
And I remember playing way too much foosball. That was my kind of crutch, like when I just use it as a distraction, go play foosball. So
yeah,
Tyler's saying.
I get that. We didn't have foosball at my podium, my last company, but we had Rocket League, and that was borderline like a bad one. And we'd play Rocket League, like a lot of people would play that like many times a day, and they got their own building and they got out of the game room. And I think that was probably why, because it worked great when there was like 15 people, but when there was like 70 engineers and they're all fighting over the Xbox and everyone's watching people play, it was kind of a distraction. So that's funny. Let's see. There was another comment coming in here. Oh no, that was an old one. We actually, out of the spirit of 100x engineering, we actually have not started our game yet, and I almost forgot. I got so excited about having Phil on the stream with us that I forgot to share the other thing that I am also excited about having on the stream with us. It is with a round of applause. If you're watching this, if you're one of the 1 million viewers, 2 million viewers, you need to applause when I say applause, please. I want to give a big round of applause for Rento, off-brand Monopoly. I mean, I can't say Monopoly because patent or trademark or something, right? But we're going to be playing Monopoly here today. Rento, which is janky Monopoly made by. But when I was running this past Drew and Phil, everyone was like, "Carter, this kind of sucks," and they're not wrong.
I don't think any of us have any idea how to play this game, but we're going to try.
It's going to be a treat, though, and I'm sad that we didn't start it earlier, but I am so excited for this. So I'm going to let you guys join. The password I'm not going to publicly say. Actually, fun fact, I'm not going to say, but it rhymes with JupiterOne and is only 2 letters long. Before, when we were testing this out, though, we actually had somebody from Armenia and France join the game. I was waiting for Phil and Drew to join. I was like, Drew, are you Callisto 34295? And nope. And then the game started and they started playing. And so this game has a community out there if you want to try it out. I'm not being paid to say that, but there are people out there and you can meet some cool. I kind of want like random strangers to play with us, but we're not going to do that today. Oh, we got
trying my best to join.
Oh, what was that?
I'm trying my best to join, but it keeps scrolling off screen. Okay, I got it.
Oh, nice. The jankiness begins.
It's a challenge to even join.
Got a comment here from Amy. I once worked for a company that made you provide your own coffee. Opposite end of the spectrum. I was going to say, Amy, that doesn't sound to me like it's a quirk or I guess it's a quirk, but it's not a good one. I would agree with that. That's opposite end of the spectrum. Maybe there's an interesting thing we could explore there. If you guys, actually, yeah, let's explore that while we wait for Drew to take his turn on Rento here. I will also say that there are some countries on here, and I did not pick which countries are most valuable and least valuable. So there's nothing political behind this from our end. We are not liable for anything in this. We're just playing Monopoly, and they happen to use country names instead of street names because that's less controversial.
We're playing Rento, not Monopoly.
Yeah, playing Rento. So, it is my turn. Okay,
how do I get start? Yeah, I rolled. I bought turkey.
You bought turkey. One does not simply buy turkey, but one does simply purchase grease. All right, there we go. Quirks, kind of on that same end of the spectrum that Amy mentioned. Thinking of things that like companies did that were like interesting. I once worked for a company where they made all their engineers have a sell to your family and friends day, and whoever won and sold the most of the product to their family and friends got a $60 Lululemon gift card, which like there's a lot to unpack there. First off is like sales and engineering, sure, like whatever, like cool, but it was like mandatory. Second off, if you want to incentivize engineers, here's a 100x engineering tip coming hot at you right now. most engineers are not motivated by athleisure sportswear, especially athleisure where it's $50 to just buy a pair of socks. So
I think Drew and I might be. That's
Yeah, Phil and I are like,
we're a little dressed up today, but I think our typical
Lululemon.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
even if it was like a Steam gift card or hell, I don't know, like a 6-pack of Monsters, I would have been like more incentivized to like do that. Maybe that's just me though.
That might just be you, Carter.
It might just be, but it was me and the rest of the engineering work because it was like fair. Oh, my turn again. Wow. Oh no, I didn't end my turn. Dang it. Sorry. It is my turn.
I was going to remind you shortly.
Thank you. Yeah, all the engineers were pretty upset about that for a long time. I still get together with friends from that company and they still bring it up. Have you guys ever had any experiences like that where it's like just like anti-quirks? And maybe don't list the specific company if you do say that.
Not, I mean, I'm sure I have, but relevant, I kind of wanted to ask, you guys had alluded to our break off from Lithomic having some quirks, and I think it's relevant. So I'm curious what that, because I did not experience that. So I'm curious if that's, were there some of these quirks, whatever term we want to use for negative experiences in that? Yeah.
Well,
I'll let Phil answer that.
You know, it was actually a really good experience. We might have implied that it was not as good as it actually was.
The technical constraints were the hard thing, not the company or cultural constraints.
Yeah, I mean, there was a point where we had to fork all the code. You know, we had a lot of shared repos, so we had to like make sure we had access to the things that we needed to still run JupiterOne. If we forgot something, there's a whole like legal aspect to separating assets. So that was interesting. A lot of it was just, you know, the business side too, just figuring out like, you know, how much is the company worth? Like how much is it going to sell for? And who's going to come along with it? Like which people are going to stay at Lithomic and which are going to come with JupiterOne. But, you know, all things said, it actually worked out really well for both companies.
I would agree. There was a, oh, by the way, we got a question coming in from Tyler again. Coming in hot. Aren't they called perks? Why are they called quirks? Did I miss something at the start of the show? I don't know. It depends on if you view like a treehouse in the office as a quirk or a perk. I call them quirks. I think a perk is like we give employees like a $50 remote reimbursement thing to like help pay for their internet like every month. Like that is a perk. A quirk is like something that's like, yeah, that's nice depending on who you are, but like I'm not particularly incentivized to work somewhere because they have a treehouse slide. I am. Drew and Phil may not be. So that's my answer.
I do remember Nerf guns at one place that I worked. It was not. I didn't really get into that though.
That is a quirk.
Yeah,
that is not a perk.
It's pretty common with engineers.
Yeah, I would say Nerf guns are a red flag for a company. It's not going somewhere and I see a Nerf gun on someone's desk. Like I know, especially if it's an open office floor plan. Like candidly,
it always is when there's always that open office.
For me, they work great for some people. I need my space. Okay, let's buy Poland. I almost landed. This is the controversy zone.
That's the danger corner of the map.
We'll talk about these two, but we'll buy Poland.
Poland's a good safe choice.
Oh, I'm bidding. Okay, I'm gonna bid. I don't know how much money do I have. I should probably pay attention to this. I'm going to bid. I'm sorry, Poland. I'm only gonna bid $90. Phil, it's your turn. Let's see.
We're bidding for the property.
Oh, I see.
Oh, you didn't want Poland, Phil. I thought we said we weren't going to keep this. We were going to keep this uncontroversial.
Oh, I didn't mean to give up.
What do you have against Poland?
Wait.
Let's see. We got Kenneth. Quirks are perks that the company tells you are perks, but most people don't care. I would agree with that as well.
Accurate.
Yeah. Oh, I thought I'd get another chance. It's not bidding if you go first and then you don't get a chance to counter. Okay.
So overall, the switch from Lithomic went well, is what I'm hearing.
It did, yeah, and I'm still friends with a lot of people that work there.
Yeah, I think from like the technical side of things, probably like the biggest challenge has been like we use Terraform, right? So like having infrastructure as code, I think you would agree, Phil, is like probably what made that possible in the first place. I don't know how we would have done it if we didn't have IAC set up for that. Do you?
No, that would have been impossible. There was a high level of automation needed to make that go smoothly.
Yeah. I chalk up like a lot of the success there to that and having like talented engineers. But I think And that's like the use case. That's like the dream use case for Terraform, right? It's like if we ever have to recreate our company, we can do it like that, and then we got to do that.
Literally.
I think honestly the biggest nuisance was a lot of our automation around Slack and our tooling around Slack got lost, and like PagerDuty, and so we had to like reset all that up. And then renaming our headers. We used to have a lot of our headers prefixed with the company name, and changing it from Lithomic to JupiterOne. It took us a while to like get that changed where it was all.
We did use that opportunity for a lot of housekeeping as well. Trying to convert things to TypeScript. We were also migrating a lot of repos from Bitbucket to GitHub. Nothing against Bitbucket, but for various reasons, it was easier to consolidate onto one service.
Yeah, that was interesting. So at Lithomic, you were on the leadership side. Like you were, what was your title at Lithomic? Actually, I don't remember.
So I think a software architect while I was there.
Okay.
And yeah, I was lucky enough to join with the first round of developers. So there wasn't really a management or leadership team. There was a leadership team, I guess, but not really a management team in place. So there was a lot of autonomy and had to figure out things ourselves and work closely with like the business side and the development side. It was a good opportunity, kind of set me up well for what I'm doing now.
Yeah, and how's what you're doing? So yeah, you were more on that. You were definitely like in the leadership side of things there, though. Like I felt like you interviewed a lot of people, you hired, and handled a lot of that stuff. But so you have transitioned since then? You're not currently an individual contributor at JupiterOne, right? I'd love to talk. Like I've kind of gone through a similar like transformation in my career in the past like 18 months, 2 years. I'd love to hear your thoughts on like what was it like shifting from like an IC role to like a non-IC role? Was that uncomfy? Was it awkward?
Like in the latter parts of my recent career, there was always sort of this pressure to be more of a leader and not writing code by yourself. And I always kind of like tried to do a little bit of both, but there's always just kind of like pressure, like, oh, you should be more in management and leadership. And so I never really wanted to fully switch over to doing just management or leadership, but finally made the jump. And it's a big change, new challenges. It's kind of like for me, like going from like running marathons to bodybuilding. Now management and leadership is like the new challenge for me. So it keeps me like really interested in and very happy with what I'm doing in my career right now.
I like that.
How much
go ahead,
flex that sounded like. Going from marathons to bodybuilding to creating a country from the ground up.
Yeah, what's next for me? We'll see.
I think that sentiment is shared across the board for engineers. So obviously I'm at a whole different end of that spectrum currently, but letting go of the IC, the individual contributor side of things is hard because at our core, that's what we love to do. And so has that been particularly difficult? I mean, you're basically hands off for the most part now, but
yeah,
I know that's why.
There's some small parts of like side projects and coding that I actually still do dabble in. We have some like internal support tools that I help build. Like they're not really mainstream critical path things, but they're helpful and they keep my skills kind of a little bit more up to date. But I know that it's never going to be like it was before, at least while at JupiterOne, which is completely fine. But I do try to stay technical. I do work with teams closely. I get a lot of enjoyment just by like coaching and mentoring and seeing other developers do great work now.
Proxy for, or vicariously living through the engineers on your team. Wow, that must have been really cool to make. I'm really happy for you. That makes me happy.
Yeah, some people turn out okay. We're still trying to work on you, Carter, but you're getting there.
I'm a project. I get it. I have some following questions, but I'm going to call out that I successfully landed on a political or a controversial landmine right now in the game, and nobody noticed.
I landed on Ukraine for a lot.
I felt bad that I landed on Ukraine, so I was like, I'm not going to pay the $180. I'm going to pay some more because, so I bid it up to $430 and then bought it. So, but yeah, probably shouldn't have this anymore. Anyways, I think, so like I've gone through a similar transformation with you. I'd like a smaller scale, right? Like moving it from like senior to like like more of like a manager director role. And like I've learned a lot in that, and it's been less easy than I thought it'd be. Like, yeah, it's easy. You just kind of you just manage people, like you lead them, and people who've been managing and leading for a while are probably laughing, but like you learned that lesson too at one point, I'm sure. But yeah, there were some things that I ran into that like surprised me. One of the things that surprised me the most is like I felt really vulnerable at the end of every day, where previously like I try and, you know, I'm a remote employee, and I think like as a remote employee, I wanted to make sure that you knew I was doing stuff every day. So I'd make sure I'd have a PR or two up that like, and then drop it inside and be like, hey, here's what I did today, and like here's the value I provided. I promise I was at my desk, and look what I did. And that was like really easy for me to track my output and feel very fulfilled at the end of a day. As a leader, as a manager, tell me if you feel this way too, or if you disagree. It's a lot harder for me to have those same like feelings like by the end of the day. Certainly some days, but like by the end of the day, I feel I don't have the same like output like metric of I did something today and I provided like this much value.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. There's definitely the way you judge your productivity has to change, and it's different for everybody. And you know, I used to judge my productivity by how much code I was contributing or how big of a feature I was working on, but now it's really hard to measure. So I think there's a lot of like small. I'm just trying to figure out what was happening back there.
I just went to jail.
Okay.
I need Turkey, Ukraine, and Greece to bail me out.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to say even what you're doing all day because it's like, you know, constant context switching, meetings, handling recruiting, talking to vendors about maybe using new software tools, and talking to different companies that want to provide other like hiring support. Yeah, there's a lot in talking to AWS partners. Yeah, there's a lot of like different things that you have to do during the day if you're not coding.
Drew, you're a team lead. Have you experienced any of that? Like, even and like because you're still as a team lead, like we expect team leads to be both engineers and like managers with like a lowercase m, right? Have you experienced any of that? Of like, I feel like my output is like more muddy now.
Yes, you know personally I have, because I've actually reached out to you for help on this, and this all resonates very directly with me because I'm at the cusp of that transition in its earliest stages. And it's hard. Like I came to Carter for help, I don't know how many months ago, and I was like, I feel like I am not productive. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like, and this is after a transition to a more team lead type role. And I needed some way to gauge, like I was grasping for a gauge on like some metric for my productivity. And he helped guide me through it as per what we were just talking about. But it's still difficult. It's still something I'm struggling with, even being more hands-on currently. You know, I'm not contributing as much as I once was, and it's hard. You have to kind of figure out what those contributions are for your team and for your org, I guess, at y'all's level.
And Drew, you're not necessarily talking about just purely management stuff, but just, you know, probably like reviewing pull requests,
correct,
and guidance on technical,
right?
Yeah, and that also does take time. So you're not necessarily writing code, but you're definitely providing value.
Right, and it's hard to see that value up front because, again, like at the end of the day, I'm not writing as much code, but my team their output is much better as a result of my reviews and guidance and pairing and whatnot. So, yeah, very, very relevant. Can relate.
As much as I'd love to, like, I feel like as a leader in a company or like a manager, like, I feel like you have two masters that you serve, right? Or you have two different like venues that you have to cater to of the needs of the business and then reconciling that with the needs of your team. And those are hard. They're hopefully not at odds with each other, but sometimes they can be.
Yep.
Where like on a moral level, I feel very fulfilled when members of my team, I'm like, they're having a good experience. It rolled for you automatically, Drew. Oh, never mind. You did that.
No, I did.
Also, LOL at Phil buying United States for $1 because nobody outbid him on it.
Wow.
I do that? Okay.
Oh, I'm in jail. Should I roll for doubles or should I pay? He's got the same facial hair that I do. We're going to pay. I'm not a man of chance. Okay. I'll make it back.
Austin actually has a good question. Austin in the chat.
Yeah. I was going to get to that in a second, but I was going to say, I get
Okay.
the warm fuzzies from like people being like, wow, it's such a joy to work here. Like, I really enjoy this. And that's important. The hard part that keeps me nervous is the business doesn't do that, right? The business doesn't go, Carter, it's such a joy, everything that you guys are doing on your team. Phil, you do a great job of validating me, but like it's soft, and I need like harder metrics from the business of like, this is the value that like Carter's team is providing. And like, you can find those metrics, but it's, again, not as clear cut and dry. And they also come slower relative to like the feedback loop is longer with like, is your team providing the value that it should be? Real quick, we got a question from Austin Kelleher here in the chat. Do you believe that your output can be measured by somehow measuring the sum of the outputs of each of your teams/team members? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think so. I mean, that's there are some subjective aspects to measuring performance and output, but I think for the most part, if your team is producing code and delivering features and fixing bugs, that's generally a good indicator that the manager is effective.
Yeah, I do second that too. With obviously it is extremely subjective, and it's hard to put concrete measures on that without falling into the trap of are we shipping X lines of code, or are we delivering X number of features in some set of time? We all know that's bad. So it's also maybe like the just overall well-being of your team, I think, is something I've factored in. Like, do my teammates feel like they're contributing? Do they feel like they're growing or getting what they want out of their position? And I think that's a big thing for me, at least.
Yeah, I remember like early in my career, I'd always pushed like using new technology, like kind of like not being satisfied with status quo. And I can look back and see like that must have been kind of annoying for managers because I'm always trying to introduce change and turn into the system. But now in my position,
and you are the manager, and we have to listen to you, so it's great.
And I have to think back, like when people want to use a new programming language or use Kotlin or Go, I'm like, okay, I get it. There's sometimes you just need change for innovation's sake, and that sometimes can be beneficial, might not be obvious right away, but usually there's some long-term benefits to embracing new technology and some level of change.
That's something that scares me. That's something I have a harder time with as a manager. Like anybody on my team, Drew can vouch for this. Like I'm fairly risk averse with trying new tech. I don't want to still using, we're not still using jQuery, everyone, I promise, or Mu tools. But like if Material UI or Apollo release a brand new version, I'm fairly risk averse of, yeah, we can adopt this right now, but we have pretty big name customers right now. And like, is it going to slow down the developer experience if we run into bugs and like we won't be able to integrate with it? Like how long is it going to take for us to like implement this new version? And like, what's the cost of that? What are we not doing to do that? And then B, what are the odds that like if this breaks, like how big of a problem will it cause for our customers and us? Like, am I going to get a PagerDuty alert at 2 o'clock in the morning because there's this thing that somebody didn't find in the new version of Apollo? Apollo might be the wrong one to pick up, by the way, if the Apollo team is out there. Nothing personal. It's just the controversial topic of do upgrade to Apollo 2 or 3 a couple years ago.
I think we balance each other out sometimes. Like, I think it's good to have a good mix, a good healthy mix of, desire for change and like, and I guess more like quality and consistency too.
Yeah, I think there's a give and take. I think there's room for both. And I think like with a lot of tech you can evaluate, I think a good like litmus test is if this broke, how serious would that be? If it's something in like your build pipeline or like your build tooling, if we're using Webpack versus ESBuild or Vite or Vite. Somebody please tell me how to say that in the chat, or Drew or Phil. But who just went to jail? Drew.
Why did I go to jail?
Did you roll doubles?
I wrote doubles twice in a row.
If you roll doubles 3 times in a row, you go to jail.
Oh, I must have rolled 3 times in a row.
We just witnessed something. I just missed something incredible. Oh, now I'm sad. It's okay. You get to hang out with the guy with the Carter facial hair in there.
Yeah, it's okay. I was going to say the same thing. I think to Phil's point, early in our careers, we're more for the risk, and we like that. And then, it's good to have that balance with the senior leadership. And I think we strike a good balance here.
Yeah, as I say, if something goes wrong, usually I'm the first person to hear about it. Ideally, I'm the first person to hear about it. And it's like, I don't want to get a call super late at night, so let's maybe try something a little safer. But that has the adverse effect of you can end up really behind on some of your tools, which we've experienced as well, which that has a different cost associated with it. This is interesting. I wasn't necessarily planning on kind of going down this rabbit hole, but I've appreciated this. I think this is cool. We've got another comment here. If the job can be done, I don't endorse this necessarily. If the job can be done without Java, it should be done without Java. A hot take. I don't know if I agree or disagree with it.
Yeah, I think I've learned at least not to be dogmatic in my views. As much as I hate Java, and I know there are some really good use cases for it. So,
yeah, it's a hot take, but it's 100x engineering. Controversy is in our genes. I was gonna say it's in our name, but it's not.
I think that's a good reminder, though, that we should kind of question our strongly held beliefs. Like, we shouldn't feel very too strongly about one language. Like, our view should change over time. Like, TypeScript is what we use frequently here, but I'm definitely open to whatever the next programming language is going to be. There's going to be some changes happening.
I was going to ask about that, actually. Let's kind of go down that thread. What led to us? So we use TypeScript on the front end and the back end, which admittedly, when I was interviewing and I found out, oh yeah, we use JavaScript on the front end and JavaScript on the back end. My next question was going to be okay, do you use MongoDB for your database as well? This seems sus. But when I found out that you're using TypeScript, I was okay, that looks like it's JavaScript set up to scale at an enterprise level. Because I feel like JavaScript, there's a lot of using a non-statically typed language on the front end, especially the back end has plenty of statically typed languages, but there's a lot of landmines there that you can run into. So I was reassured, I was okay working in JavaScript because we had the TypeScript guardrails. What went into us using TypeScript originally? That was before I showed up. Why did we pick that for our backend?
I would hate to say I just picked it because that was what I was familiar with, but that was
the one that picked it.
Oh, I guess I influenced that decision early on. Yeah, we had a lot of Java developers, and for what we were trying to do and the speed we're trying to build it in, I think Java would have just slowed us down. But now that we mature, we should start looking at other languages. But yeah, I guess, TypeScript was a pretty decent language, it's pretty universal. A lot of people would switch from working on the front end and back end, and it was definitely a nice dream to sell. But I think things will change a little bit over time. I think a lot of the languages, as they become more popular, they develop a lot of cruft, and you're still seeing it in TypeScript and JavaScript, and they're trying to undo a lot of bad history, getting rid of language features that weren't popular or adding new language features. And then you have a nightmare with all your tooling. Eventually, you just have to cleanse the language and start from scratch again. So I know that's why Go is very popular. It's just the reboot of all those other languages.
Right. I will say, coming on as one of the first engineers on the J1 team, very early, having the front end and the back end be in the same language was it. If you have a team of 5 engineers, 6 engineers, you're gonna have to wear a lot of hats, and having the same language be on both certainly reduced the barrier of entry for that. And I think it made it easier for us to bring other people onto the team as well. There's a lot of JavaScript's. I mean, maybe this is a hot take, but JavaScript's not an objectively difficult language to learn. I feel I can yell out on the street and ask if anybody can tell me how to use async and await, and I'll probably have 3 people come and be hey, yeah, here you go. Whereas if you're using something like Elixir or Svelte or Rust or something, they're out there, but the community is a lot smaller, right? Because it doesn't encompass web.
Yeah, back when React was becoming popular, I was working on an open source project that my brother started called Marco.js, which is kind of a little bit of a joke now because among I still get teased about it, but it actually was a really cool web framework. It just, because of timing, React took off and Marco never became as popular as it probably should have been. But, sometimes you have to pick sides, and sometimes, for various reasons, popularity, technical reasons, you might have picked the wrong side. So I think you should have to readjust.
Right. I agree with that. We actually have another comment in here. I love getting comments on the show in case if you have a comment that you want to share and you're should I share this or maybe not, please do, because I love showing comments on the screen. This is one of my favorite parts of the stream. comment from Julia, Vite, referencing, oh, thank heavens. Yes, okay, Vite, because it is named for the French word for fast. So today I learned, and I no longer have to sound like a fool when I'm trying to pronounce it. I felt like it was like every time I say like referencing like GIFs, I always say GIF, GIF, and kind of slur because I never know which one to say. So Vite, objectively is that. Thank you, Julia. If anybody disagrees out there, I'm just going to blindly trust that. Actually, I'm not even going to fact check that. That's interesting. So we have kind of actually like three different we mentioned this. We have kind of like three different levels of like management and leadership here. Phil, what are kind of some of your thoughts on like the differences between like a manager, a team lead, and like a tech lead?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I think this is a Drew question. Sorry, I stole it, Drew.
Yeah, so
it's fine.
You're in jail, so you can't ask it.
I don't think there's definitely not a right answer, and it really depends on the company. But so either of these things could work. But when I was at Interactive Intelligence, one of my previous companies I worked at, I was a manager / technical lead. So I was still writing code and managing people. And then in other companies, I've been just a technical lead and was not directly managing people. I didn't have to do performance reviews or anything else a manager has to do. But, I at JupiterOne, for better or worse, we try to keep managers a little bit more focused on management responsibilities and less coding. I just found like, even when
I hear that as well.
Do I agree? I do. I think it can be pretty stressful switching back and forth between management and writing code, and it creates a lot of like stress about like you maybe feel like you're not working on the right thing. So I think either can become like a full-time job, and it's not necessarily better to kind of split them, have one person do both. But definitely room for I welcome any feedback, and if some people might love to do a little bit of both, and you don't have to find pick one or the other.
Drew, I guess so. We heard from like Phil's position. From your perspective, like what would a like difference between a team lead and manager be? I guess come from like the team perspective.
That answer was super interesting to me because I don't think any of us fall in the category of completely one or the other, management versus kind of hands-on type work. I don't know. I'm at the cusp of this, like I said, so I'm still very much hands-on. I'm basically just a senior engineer with mentorship roles. And to me, I think it does depend on the company setup and the situation and the culture. I don't agree with having like a purely hands-off technical position, I think, but I also don't know if I agree with having a hands-off managerial position, because that can lead to some, I think we've all had a manager that's not exactly technical, and that's not a good situation to be in. Yeah, super interesting. I don't have the wisdom to know the answer to that, but that's my current experience.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a manager and also a technical lead, I would have to do performance reviews like quarterly and do one-on-ones and, try to understand what the career goals of everybody that reports to me, what they were, and try to help them out in their career. And then I also had to write code, and it was a lot of context switching. It was like a lot of like IC type work, some technical guidance, and then management. I don't know. It's
So it was the context switching probably that was the rough part for it?
Yeah, it was. Although, it worked kind of for us. Like a lot of managers were also technical leads. I don't know. It's hard to say if we were doing the best thing that we could.
I would agree with that. I think whenever I've tried to write code or like be like, I'm just going to like do this myself. I'm like, I'm a manager, but I can like get it done. There's like some small projects that are like small enough in scope that I think like, okay, that was a good use of my time, like, my little blocks of time between. But it's hard to keep context on stuff when you work on it like an hour every 2 or 3 days. And I've also found that when I'm like, if I'm really trying to get something done, then I end up kind of sucking at both jobs. Like I'm not a great engineer and I'm not a great manager either. Like I drop balls on both of them. So I'd rather be like really good at one thing and then trust the engineers to do what the engineers are good at for the other thing.
And what you just said is a much better way of saying what I was trying to say.
That makes more sense. I'm following with that.
I get to roll again. So we're coming up on time here. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Okay, we haven't done this yet. Hang on. Select land. Okay, I didn't get to read it. What am I doing here? Oh, let's go to Lithuania. Oh, I put a bear trap there. What is? Am I correct in assuming that's a bear trap?
Sure looks like it. Maybe it's a fortress, medieval city.
What was that?
Maybe it's a medieval city with a fortress around it.
Yeah, maybe. We'll take it. So kind of wrapping up here, we're coming up on time. Phil, kind of in closing thoughts, if you had to give, if you had to give some wisdom to prospective engineers that are looking to shift into management out there, there was a really good question in the chat actually that I want to make sure you got addressed, and then we'll get to this question. But I'm going to ask you, so think about this. So if what wisdom would you give for somebody trying to like get into management? Like, what are some things they can be doing as an engineer, or things they cannot be doing? We're going to get to that question in a second here. Anne actually asked a question. Here I go saying I love questions in the chat, and then I ignore this one. I'm sorry, Anne. But I love your red panda photo. How do you approach the distinction between a director versus a manager role? So let's tackle this one, and then we'll wrap up with kind of closing thoughts here. So how would you describe the difference between, I was going to say between your job and mine, since you're VP and I'm director, but actually be more of like difference between like, am I a manager? Am I a director? That's an interesting question.
There's a little bit of a gray area, but I mean, my general guideline is a manager has individual contributors reporting to that person, and then a director has managers reporting to them. Now, I think we blur the lines a little bit at JupiterOne because we have team leads reporting to directors as well, so more like Carter. But these team leads are kind of, and sometimes like managers. So and they're handling a lot of. So maybe it's a little bit of combination, like how many direct reports or indirect reports you have too. So it's not, black and white sometimes.
Yeah, I like that. I'd say, a director, maybe I should be able to answer this because it's my title. But on paper, like a director is somebody who has managers report to them, and then, individual contributors report to managers. At JupiterOne, it is a little bit interesting because we have our managers, our team leads have management responsibilities, and essentially, I don't feel like you can be a manager with like 17 direct reports. That's where it's like more of, you have kind of 3 direct reports, and then they each have like 4 or 5 direct reports. It's kind of the way I perceive it. Good question, Ann. So Phil, kind of in conclusion, what wisdom would you give to people who are aspiring to go into more of the management track of engineering in their careers?
So I would say, like managers have an important role at companies, and it's not, more important than a developer or an individual contributor or a technical team lead. I think you have to, at a company, like treat all like types of roles as equally important, because I think some people view as managers as like a superior position. It's just a different path. And, it's a new challenge for someone that was going from like writing code mostly to writing to management. You're definitely leveraging a lot of your experience, your people skills, your kind of like your history of like making the same mistakes. So there's a lot you can leverage as, going from an individual contributor to a manager. And it's something that I think should be viewed as, you don't have to go, you can dip your toes in it. If you don't like it, you can always go back as well and stay more technical.
I love that. That's some solid wisdom. Thank you so much, Phil, for joining us. I apologize for shuffling the screens around, by the way, into this, whatever format this is right now. I was trying to put Rento away so we could focus on the words coming from you. And I just made it more distracting. But Phil, thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the call. I will talk to you tomorrow in our one-on-one. And have a good evening, and we'll see you next time. What did I do with this layout here? This feels, with the 3 people, it actually felt kind of cool. It felt like it was like an Avengers kind of thing there. Let me shift it. Better. That is much better. I apologize to our viewers.
I can take a breath. Cool.
Made you nauseous. Oh, I can finally breathe. He's gone. Phil, interviewing your boss. My heart is aflutter.
You were nervous. I was nervous.
You're sweating. I can see it. You're not even at the gym. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on this week's episode of 100x Engineering. We'll be back at you in 2 weeks from today as well with an exciting new episode, with an exciting new interviewee, and hopefully a more janky game. I am gonna not sleep tonight over. I don't know why there's a bear trap on Lithuania right now.
We might never know.
We might never know. I don't think anybody made it around the board more than once, but it was fun. So yeah, with that, I got to do the streamer thing. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, smash the bell, or whatever it is on Twitch or LinkedIn, and we will see you all in 2 weeks. And let's roll the outro sequence. And it goes now.